Capitalism versus socialism. What actually worked and what didn't? It's one of the loudest arguments in modern history, a debate that survived revolutions, toppled empires, bankrupted superpowers, and split the world into rival camps. Capitalism versus socialism. For over a century, these weren't just economic theories, they were battle lines. Behind worker uprisings, recession-era riots, propaganda films, coups, and proxy wars, this argument shaped the world we live in. But here's the part almost nobody says out loud. Neither system worked the way the textbooks promised. Not cleanly, not permanently. And when real pressure hit, war, famine, inflation, corruption, collapse, the truth showed itself with brutal clarity. Welcome to The Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it looks. The story begins long before anyone used the words capitalism or socialism. For most of human history, the economy wasn't an economy in the modern sense. It was survival. Land was the primary source of wealth. Monarchs and elites controlled resources by inheritance, conquest, and law. Most people lived as peasants, producing just enough to avoid starving. Productivity grew slowly. Life was often a zero-sum struggle. If someone rose, someone else fell. Then the Industrial Revolution cracked the old world open. Britain in the late 1700s became a pressure cooker of coal, iron, machines, and private investment. Factories replaced workshops. Mechanized production multiplied output. For the first time, ordinary individuals, at least some of them, could build fortunes through enterprise rather than nobility. Capitalism, in its early industrial form, was both astonishing and ugly. It produced more goods, more wealth, and more speed than any society had ever seen, but it also produced slums, child labor, toxic cities, and violent inequality. It raised wages in some places and crushed lives in others. And that brutality is exactly why socialism was born, not primarily as a dream, but as a reaction. By the mid-1800s, thinkers like Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels looked at factory systems and concluded the problem wasn't a few bad bosses, it was the structure itself. They argued that profit was built on exploitation, that workers created value but owners captured it, and that the solution was collective ownership, factories run for public need, not private gain. In theory, socialism would eliminate exploitation, reduce inequality, and replace chaotic markets with rational planning. It sounded clean, moral, and to people trapped in industrial misery, it sounded like justice. But theory is polite, reality is violent. When socialism was attempted on a national scale, it wasn't in a seminar room, it was in the ruins of imperial collapse. After the 1917 Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks inherited a huge country that was poor, largely agrarian, politically unstable, and war-torn. They tried to build a new operating system, state ownership of land, factories, banks, and resources, central planning replacing markets, production targets replacing profit. In theory, this should have created efficiency and fairness. In practice, it created massive problems. Without market prices, planners struggled to know what people actually wanted and how scarce things truly were. Factories chased quotas, not quality. Innovation slowed because competition was suppressed. Incentives weakened because personal reward was limited. Shortages became normal. Lines became culture. Agriculture, still the backbone, suffered disasters that contributed to famine. Even Lenin was forced to retreat temporarily with limited market reforms just to keep the country functioning. Socialism promised equality, but often delivered scarcity plus a new ruling class, party officials and bureaucrats. Yet capitalism wasn't exactly proving itself either. By the early 20th century, capitalist economies had created immense wealth, but also extreme instability. Speculation, monopolies, and financial bubbles grew. The wealthy lived like royalty while millions had little security. Then 1929 hit. The Great Depression was not a normal downturn, it was an economic heart attack. Banks collapsed, unemployment exploded, entire societies lost faith. To many observers, capitalism looked not merely flawed but self-destructive. So by the 1930s, the world faced an uncomfortable truth. Socialism struggled to produce abundance, and capitalism struggled to prevent collapse. Then came the ultimate stress test, World War II. Under war pressure, every major economy became more state-directed, no matter its ideology. The Soviet Union mobilized with terrifying speed through centralized control. The United States turned into an industrial supermachine powered by private innovation and coordinated by government. The war proved something important. When survival is on the line, every system becomes a hybrid. After 1945, the planet became a real-world laboratory. The Soviet bloc ran central planning and suppressed markets. The West ran private enterprise, but with regulation and safety nets born from Depression lessons. In the Soviet Union, early decades did bring real achievements: rapid industrialization, rising literacy, expanded housing, growing military power. But over time, the cracks widened. Without strong price signals, the economy became inefficient in absurd ways. Factories met targets by producing goods nobody wanted. Innovation lagged because competition was suppressed. Consumer life stagnated. By the 1970s and 80s, the gap was visible. A system that could build rockets struggled to provide decent everyday products. Meanwhile, capitalism adapted. After 1929, many capitalist countries built guardrails: deposit insurance, antitrust laws, labor protections, unemployment support, pensions, public health programs, and regulation. Capitalism didn't become perfectly fair, but it became more stable than its earlier version. That adaptability turned out to be its strongest weapon. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, the Cold War was being decided not by speeches, but by shelves. The Soviet Union wasn't defeated by invasion, it was defeated by stagnation, broken incentives, and an economy that couldn't keep up. A system designed to eliminate inequality created its own elite. Insiders, officials, protected networks, while ordinary citizens endured shortages. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the verdict looked final. Markets outperformed central planning. But capitalism's victory lap didn't last. By the 1990s and 2000s, capitalism evolved again into a more financialized form. Global supply chains, exploding credit, massive leverage, and asset bubbles. Inequality surged in many countries. Corporate power expanded. Then 2008 hit like a historical echo. Once again, capitalism produced a crisis big enough to shake trust and expose fragility, and that reopened the debate, especially among younger generations facing high housing costs, stagnant wages, and unstable work. Here's the twist modern politics often hides. Almost no major country today is pure capitalism or pure socialism. Most successful economies are hybrids. Scandinavia is often labeled socialist, but it has private companies, markets, and global firms, paired with high taxes, strong unions, and generous social protections. That's capitalism with heavy guardrails. The United States is a market powerhouse with immense innovation, paired with sharp inequality and weaker safety nets in key areas. China is the most complicated case. It calls itself socialist, but it uses markets and private enterprise under strong state direction and political control. In other words, mixed systems everywhere because reality forced compromise. So what actually worked? Not ideology, adaptation. Systems survive when they can correct mistakes and restrain power. Capitalism's strength is incentives. When it works, it unleashes creativity, risk-taking, and productivity. Its weakness is concentration and instability. Without guardrails, wealth and power pool at the top, and bubbles form. Socialism's strength is security. When it works, it reduces extreme poverty and expands access to basics. But without markets, signals collapse. Without open institutions, corruption grows quietly. Without competition, innovation slows. And human nature doesn't vanish in neither system. Under capitalism, greed can become innovation until it becomes exploitation. Under socialism, equality can become solidarity until it becomes repression. Different levers, same human tendencies. The real question isn't capitalism or socialism, it's what mix produces innovation without predation and security without stagnation. The 21st century is forcing that question again because AI disruption, climate risk, demographic decline, energy transitions, and global debt don't care about slogans. The countries that thrive will be the ones that combine the creativity of markets with the resilience of public investment, private innovation with public direction, freedom with stability, incentives with guardrails. History didn't pick a team. History picked what prevented collapse, and every generation has to renegotiate the balance because the debate was never just about economics, it was always about power, who controls the rules, who benefits from the system, and who pays when it fails. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.